One of the biggest changes in human history didn't start with a bang. It started with a secret smuggled across an ocean. We're talking about the Industrial Revolution, of course, an idea born in Britain that was just too powerful to stay on one little island. So today, we're going to trace how that industrial spark escaped, jumped continents, and ended up completely remaking the world as we know it.
So, really, how did one guy's memory literally change the course of history for an entire nation, and then the whole planet? I mean, it sounds like something out of a spy movie, right? But nope, this is the true story of how the Industrial Revolution started to go global.
All right, so our story begins with that secret making its way across the Atlantic, carrying that industrial flame from Great Britain all the way to a brand new nation, the United States.
Okay, so the man of the hour is Samuel Slater. This guy, an English textile worker, he memorized the entire complex design for Britain's most advanced machines. He gets on a boat to the US and then just rebuilds them from memory. It's incredible. And this was like the perfect storm. You had Slater's incredible brainpower, plus America's huge supply of natural resources, and a ton of people ready to work. That's what lit the fuse.
And the effect? It was instant. We're not just talking about a few new machines here. This changed the entire map. Whole towns, like Lowell, Massachusetts, just popped into existence, all centered around these new factories. And this created a totally new kind of worker. Suddenly, you have all these young women leaving their farms to work in the mills. That was a massive shift for American society.
But here's the thing, America didn't just play copycat. Nope. They took that spark from Britain and they cranked it up to 11, creating this powerful new economic engine that everyone started calling the American system.
So what is this American system all about? Well, the big idea, the core of it all, was mass production. The ability to make tons and tons of identical things. And the genius behind it was a pretty simple recipe, actually. You take some interchangeable parts, you add an assembly line, and you throw in a clear division of labor. This wasn't just a small step up. This was the recipe for a manufacturing explosion.
And the beating heart of this whole thing was the assembly line. It's a concept that sounds so simple now, but back then, it was revolutionary. Think about it. Instead of one person building a whole product, the product itself moves from worker to worker. Each person does just one specific job. That's your division of labor. And because they do that one thing over and over, they get ridiculously good at it. That's specialization. The result, a crazy, mind-blowing jump in how much stuff could get made.
Just look at the difference here. On one side, you've got the old way, right? A single craftsman taking forever to make one beautiful but super expensive thing. Then, on the other side, the new way. A whole team of workers cranking out tons of identical products super fast. The impact was just huge. It wasn't just about having more things. For the first time ever, regular people could actually afford to buy them.
And believe me, this system did not stay small. It grew, and it grew fast. You go from those first little mills in the 1820s to a huge tech boom after the Civil War. And then bam, by the late 1800s, you've got railroads crisscrossing the country and these massive corporations popping up. In less than 100 years, America went from being a nation of farmers to a global industrial giant. It's wild.
Okay, but all this wasn't happening in a bubble. While America was building this new system, what was going on back in Europe? While they were trying to get in on the action too. The problem was, a lot of the continent was kind of a mess, with all the revolutions and the Napoleonic Wars. But once things finally calmed down, that industrial fire leaped right back across the Atlantic. And the race was on.
And what's really interesting is that every country did it a little differently. You look at Belgium, they went for it big time. They had the resources and, yep, you guessed it, they got some smuggled plans from Britain. Germany, with all its coal and iron, took a bit longer to get going, but then it just exploded. And France? They had such a strong farming economy that they took a much slower, more steady approach. So everyone kind of tailored the revolution to fit them, which really set the stage for a whole new level of competition in Europe.
All right, this is where we get to the really big picture stuff. Because this whole revolution, it wasn't just about steam engines and new gadgets. It literally redrew the lines of power across the entire globe. It created a massive, and I mean massive, new divide.
You see, for all the amazing progress and all the money that was made, there was a dark side. The Industrial Revolution created a huge gap between countries. The difference in wealth between the nations that industrialized and those that didn't, it became bigger than it had ever been in all of human history.
It basically split the world into two camps. You had the haves, Europe and the US, who got incredibly rich and powerful.
This wealth created a new middle class which started demanding things like democracy and social reforms. And then you had the have-nots in places like Africa and Asia. Their new job in this world order? To supply the cheap raw materials for the factories of the haves, which meant their own economies got left in the dust.
And this wasn't just some accidental divide, it was an active process. Think of those factories in Europe and America as these constantly hungry beasts. They always needed more raw materials to eat and new markets to sell their products to. And that hunger, that's what directly fueled the age of imperialism. Industrial countries started taking over other parts of the world just to feed their factories and secure their profits.
So that's the legacy, right? On one hand, the Industrial Revolution gave us incredible wealth, mind-bending innovation, the modern middle class. But on the other hand, it created these deep, lasting divisions and drove countries to build empires. So the big question for all of us is, when you look around at our world today, at the global economy, at who has wealth and who doesn't, aren't we still living in the world that was built back then?